Well, I was approached by Boom when I got started on the Adventure Time comics. The editor, Shannon Waters, asked me if I'd like to do it, and I said yes, and that was really the whole process behind it. When I was writing Marceline Gone Adrift, I think I was trying to pull elements from my own experiences, particularly in the creative fields, where Marceline is a little bit disillusioned because she feels that there are a lot of expectations on her to produce something bigger and better than the last thing she produced, and she's looking to life itself to find those new experiences that are going to influence her work. There's also the aspect of alienation when you leave your friends behind that I've sort of hinted at throughout that story. I was definitely trying to work in as many of those real life elements as I could. A big part of what people want is messages in their work that are kind of socially just, and give them a feeling that the world isn't just inherently chaotic and cruel. So I think there's been a bit of a slant towards fantasy and magic and elements that are aesthetically very pleasing and can serve as sort of an aesthetically nice allegory for some of the good parts about the world, about friendship and love and companionship and supporting one another. We were talking about a story that I don't want to spoil in this comic that comes up at some point in 2015 that resonated especially strongly with younger readers. And I totally get why that's a thing right now. They are having trouble finding work, kind of having trouble solidifying their place in American culture, and focusing on one's identity is one of the more therapeutic things you can do for yourself. Well, I've been teaching at SVA for about 4 years now, and I went to SVA from 2002 to 2006. I was in the animation program, and I heard from the cartooning department a few years back that they were looking for somebody to teach the sort of class that I teach, which is specifically webcomics. The idea was that they really wanted to usher the program into something that a new wave of cartoonists could really benefit from. And a lot of the students don't really have a million creative ideas, but they don't necessarily have the ability to use computers that way. I happen to be a teenage nerd, and I know quite a bit about it, so I seemed right for the role, I guess. It's great being able to take that potential in students and give them a little bit more savvy so that they can sort of do a little bit of everything with it. Teaching webcomics is sort of like teaching how to be a freelancer. The two are really very similar. It just has more of a slant on the culture around webcomics and around being computer savvy. So I definitely focus on what I think is interesting about the medium. I encourage the students to try new things with it, but I also teach them basic HTML, which they hate to learn. I really wanted to teach students how to make their own website that is completely theirs and not owned by a larger company. So a big part of what I'm doing is just teaching students to crave that sort of independence going forward, to not, sell their work to the lowest bidder. I try to teach cartoonists to be scrappy. There's definitely a difference between what cartoonists need to do today in order to make it in this industry compared to what there was 20, 30, 40 years ago. The skills may not be too different. As an independent cartoonist, you really have to sell yourself in a certain way, but the expectations are entirely different, where a cartoonist has to prove themselves in every which way before a company will even take them seriously. It's very hard to imagine a publisher taking a risk on a cartoonist who hasn't published their own book now. So for a young cartoonist to prove themselves, it used to be about submitting to a publisher. It used to be about trying to get syndicated. The publishing still exists, the syndicates don't really, and the only way I think for a cartoonist to force their work in front of people's eyes is to put it out in public and allow people to see basically a free sample, if not an entire free body of work, before anyone's going to make a decision about whether they deserve to get paid for it or not. So a cartoonist has to sell themselves very strongly, very aggressively at times, if they want anybody to pay attention. I don't really see a big difference between webcomics and the larger comics industry anymore. You see a lot of webcomic artists working for the smaller publishers now, like Boom and IDW, and I think the publishers are looking for those people because they know that there's an established presence there, and they know that in addition to what will probably be competently done work, they're also going to get an existing audience being interested in the things they're putting out. So publishers are very interested, I think, in what webcomic artists are doing, and webcomic artists are certainly interested in being paid by them. So hopefully they can work something out eventually. So the advice I generally give people, and I think it's sort of inherent in the question that they're looking for something to do other than actually do the work, is to do the work. I feel like people are just constantly looking for the answer to how to succeed in these fields without doing anything, and there is no secret password beyond getting the work done that's ever going to work. I mean, you can talk and talk about your work all you want, but it really just diminishes your desire to create that finished thing. So my advice constantly to young cartoonists is to please just do it before you've even had a chance to talk about it. Just make a finished thing. And even if it doesn't turn out terrifically, it's been done. And that's so much better than having it up here where it doesn't do anything for anybody.
Worship me!